Alright, should be going live shortly here. Let me check CCAN real quick. I don't think there will be any updates. If there haven't been any yet, there probably won't be any. Oh wow, there's actually quite a few. But nothing for these other ones. They're not done yet. Well, I'll do that later. Alright, so everyone, this is GeoRo from Productions², and we're back. I'm back after quite a while. It was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. That was going to be like a week and a half. It was almost 3 weeks that I was down there house sitting. So I'm actually quite a bit done, and not only for RO but also for a similarly related project, which if anyone that was not part of GeoRo back when it was open about a decade ago would know about, which was Ghost/Kayamari. He was one of our he was basically the co-admin with me, but he was writing a fan fiction, so I was working on that over that break as well. So he turned it over to me to continue once he decided he wasn't going to work on it anymore. Anyway, so so there were a couple things that happened. First, my laptop this laptop I have is like I think I bought it in 2007. I think either 2008, sometime 2007, 2008, sometime in there. Windows Vista, really an early system had it on it. One of those whole pieces of crap thing from HP that was supposedly Vista capable, but it's really not, because the processor was too slow and there wasn't really, well, the RAM was maxed up, but the processor was way too slow. To this day, I think that those marketing gimmicks they used should have gotten them some sort of fine, but I digress. Anyway, so it works for stuff that have done in the past with it, because I actually had it in that house when I was house sitting last year. Did recording for CE on it, and I did some more Crimson Echoes recording on it this time. That is almost done, by the way. I've gotten all the side quests done for that, and really it's just on, like, I'm literally, unless I do some more leveling, which I'll probably do in the Coliseum, it'll just be right to the end of the game. So that's nearly done now. For Reciteer, your guess is as good as mine. I have no clue when I'm going to get back onto that. For a couple of reasons that we'll go over a little bit later, maybe at the end of the video. But so I did have a lot of time to work on stuff, and I did. First thing I did is I tried to combat some of the problems with that laptop, because I think the RAM is dying on it now. So occasionally what would happen is that I might have stuff open in Chrome on there, because what I was doing was after I'd done the items and the mob changes that were on the well, at least the mobs. I didn't do any of the item changes that were on the wiki or the GeoRo wiki on our website. I was doing NPCs, and one of the NPCs I wanted to do new to create something new for was the Job Master. The Job Master they have on eAthena/rAthena is okay, but at the same time, given the way I'm going with the Warper, with the GeoRo NPC, I wanted to make it so that you would have to actually go out into more parts of the game than just the places where you level up the fastest. So what I wanted to do is actually create an NPC that would tell you specifically where you needed to go, who you needed to talk to, and what you would need to do for those NPCs that you were to talk to for doing the official job quests. So, like, you would go to this NPC, it would detect what your class is, like if you're a novice and your level, show you a thing that says, okay, what job are you seeking to change to? You would select it, and then it'll tell you specifically for that job where the quest for that job change is located at, and what you're likely going to have to do to complete it. Still working on that, because it is very hard to find stuff on some of the jobs, and it's also kind of really annoying in terms of how long some of the later ones are. I'll show you what I mean by that later, but I would have like the rate my server quest information page up, and I would have like a couple wiki pages or something open, and this other random sort of crap that I had gotten distracted by while searching for other things, like I don't know, some YouTube video of cats doing stuff or something. But if I tried to close Chrome for some reason, several times during the time I was down there, it would actually caused a blue screen, which is like, what the hell? Shouldn't do that. But the downside of that is that I had not I had done all the item stuff, but I hadn't done the mob stuff yet. No, wait, switch it around. I'd done the mob stuff, but I hadn't done all the item stuff yet because I didn't know what I would still need to do, because I didn't know if going through some of these NPCs I would want to create new items for them, or if there would be some item that was there that needed to be changed. And I did find a couple of cases where I had missing stuff or had to change stuff or add stuff to make it a little more usable. So I hadn't actually generated out anything for the mobs yet. So got burned 3 times by that, and on the 4th time I decided, okay, I know what I need now because I had gotten through the NPCs that were causing me to have to create those items. So I decided, okay, stop there, create these items, create the mobs, generate out the SQL stuff for it, and then continue from there. And that was the last time I had an issue with that. But there were also some issues I had to deal with in terms of using the tool that I probably should have been recording down so I could remember what they were now that I'm back to and able to work on it some more. One of the issues is that for update output scripts, there's no semicolon at the end of it, so that it's basically malformed when you try to use it. Another issue was that sometimes for whatever reason, not sure why, on mobs, the card ID would get set to 0, or the card drop rate would get set to 0 for some reason. I've noticed though that there are times when the data is being changed by the program to make it correct when it's actually faulty in the database. Like for example, on a lot of the book weapons that I have made for Star Gladiators, the refine value is 255, which is invalid. It's either a yes or no. So I was noticing when I was modifying those to actually fix the names because they were wrong. Like Aldebaran with Al one word, De another word, Baron another word when it's supposed to be shoved together. That a lot of times with those, that the refined value was getting put back in, and I'm thinking, why is that? Shouldn't it be happening? So I checked the data and I was like, oh, that's why. So it's kind of interesting that, and I've noticed this on some enemies, some of the mob behavior values have gotten changed, but I didn't change anything. I think it's because there's an invalid value there in the database, and so what's happening is the editor's bringing it in, taking what's valid from it and setting it, and then the invalid stuff's being dropped on the floor and kind of shoved under a carpet somewhere and forgotten, and then what's being put back out is the corrected value. So I think it's kind of interesting that it's finding that kind of stuff and changing it. Something that I hadn't considered in terms of like having to check the output of it to make sure that it's actually correct, or if it's actually correct, double correct, and if it's correcting a problem that's in the existing data. So that was really an interesting thing that caused me to take 2 days to try and figure out without actually having access to the source code, which was pretty fun actually, and it's being so sarcastic there. So I was losing my mind at first. So I checked the data for the it was more for the mob thing, but then I kind of confirmed my suspicion with the refinable value being changed. So that's kind of an interesting foray into losing my mind. So that got all done. I got done with I think all the NPCs. Not all of them, most of them. I got done with most of the main folder NPCs. Some of them, which were really huge, like the Nether Realm Divider, I said, screw it, I'm not even going to touch those right now because this stupid laptop's got this small, like 15-inch screen and you can't do jack on it. On a file like that, that's like huge. And let's see, what else didn't I do? I started on the job quest NPCs. Didn't get through that because, well, I'll show you why. And then I started looking more at some of the other stuff that I would need to do to be able to get the server back up, which is how we got to dual classes. So dual classes was interesting. When I had first created these, when was that? 2006-ish. I was basically a script kiddie in terms of my knowledge of programming. So basically, I just went through, looked at how things are set up here in the upper section of this. No, not there. Yes, here. No, not here. Here? Is it mob? I'm almost certain it's not in mob. I'm almost certain it's in the map. But it's hidden. Yeah, here we go. So I gotta find it now. It's like you would almost never find this if you didn't know where to look, because it's just like buried in here somewhere, and it's not on here. It's actually in the HPP file. Crap. Yeah, here. So, I just looked at like how they had these set up, and like they were using this, and then the job 2-1, and then all that stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, we'll do what they did here, and then that'll be that. I mean, it worked for the purposes of then, and then there was some other weird stuff I did to make things work because they were getting matched to other IDs for reasons that I was not aware of until I actually looked at what was actually happening. And now that I know what bitmasks really are in terms of like their functionality and how this actually works, made more sense to me. So so I like had like using these custom ones that I had, like job dual 1 2 3 blah blah blah. Then I had like job underscore 2 job underscore 3 through like 4 or 5 or something. I was using them all over the place in weird combinations. And I thought that you had to do that because maybe somehow the server was taking like this value here and using it to say, okay, this is a swordman class or a novice class or whatever, so we have to use that in conjunction with this because that's how they're doing this here. I was thinking, okay, so this is super novice, so we have to tell the map server that this is a novice type class, and then that it's a job 2 class or something. What this is really doing is just for their own purposes. This means jack crap. It doesn't mean anything. It's how they are defining this is a 2-1 job. It doesn't have any. This has no. This could be 5 Fs or something, and wouldn't matter at all to anything. And that's what I realized when I was working on it. So I decided, okay, let's just do it this way. So everything has its own hex code value now, and then once we get to 11, because 11's the highest it can go to, the highest I want to go to. I don't want to go up higher than 8 for some reasons that may not yet be apparent, and some that might be. In terms of maybe that there are certain things that'll use that upper range that aren't really listed here or something. And I just combine the two together as we go, and then create a different combination of them. So I was able to re-add them all and get them in here so that these bit masks are not copying anything, but they also leave a lot of room for adding new stuff in when inevitably I go to making tri-class system, which is going to be an unmitigated crap fest, because it was difficult enough doing all this stuff for 2 classes. Now you're adding a 3rd level of class in there. It's going to be an order of magnitude more stuff to deal with, and it's just blah. But I am going to do it because the motto of the server back then was, if you're going to do something, do it the hard way. So we're going to do it the bloody hard way. So I did that stuff, and then when I got back, I've been back since Wednesday, but I haven't really gotten a chance to dig into this stuff until this morning, because I've got a pretty big contract going on right now. But started digging into this and looking into some more of the stuff, and found out that there was some stuff that I had never done anything for these classes. Like, for example, this thing. I had no clue that this existed. This is a job-specific stat bonus database. Well, it says it right there. But what it is it's saying that at each job level, this class will get this many, will get an extra point added to it for whatever, whatever value is here. So like for example, job level 3 for novice, you get an extra luck point. At 4, you get an extra dex point. At 7, you get, or is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get a extra AGI point, and so on and so forth. I hadn't done any of this stuff for the classes I'd made, and I hadn't done anything to extend these for the extra job levels I had created by changing the settings. So this is something that I'm going to be working on as well. Now, what else? There's some other things too. Well, that's the experience thing. This is another one. So this, I'm not really sure what the hell this does, to be honest. I mean, it has these things. I mean, obviously you have the job, you have the job ID, the amount of weight it can carry, the HP factor, which is, I guess, a value that multiplies the HP or is used in a maybe maybe, I guess, yeah, logarithmic function. Yeah, the multiplicator, SP factor, unarmed, and then this stuff here. I have no clue. This is some sort of thing. I don't know. It has to do with, obviously, with different types of weapons, but I don't know what specifically the values are for because it doesn't explain what they're for. To me, it kind of makes no sense either because, you know, on some of these, it's adding stuff to weapons that class can't actually even use. Like, an archer, a magician can't use a one-handed spear or a two-handed spear or a two-handed anything. They can only use staves, books, and maybe... Well, they also have rods, I guess. Maybe it's... I think staves are in there too somewhere. So, but it has stuff here for pretty much everything. And then I think the last one is something else. Last one is shield. Okay, yeah. It's not a weapon, but for the shield. So I'm not sure what these values actually represent at all. But I guess I could go and see if there's anywhere where it's actually explained. Probably is somewhere. I have to dig into the Arathena wiki or something. But I have to add my stuff into here. Let's see. This was the skill DB. I was using this originally to copy skills to use for my dual classes, and then I realized that I could use a skill tree to do the same thing without actually duplicating anything, which is the other thing I've been working on today was the skill tree to add my stuff into it. If I can figure out where it's at. There it is. Which was kind of interesting because I found stuff that I didn't know I had. I actually had some other custom classes that I actually never really implemented, but I had created stuff for. Basically, they were just P.E.K.K.A classes for various knight classes. But I had not created them, and I had not put them into the server code yet. So they're just kind of, you know, existing and not actually being used. So when I went to go change this stuff, change the IDs, I threw all this stuff into Excel to change the IDs more quickly. Stuff wasn't matching up, and I was wondering why. Part of the reason was because we had those P.E.K.K.A classes in here taking up space that wasn't actually being used. Like, for example, where is one? I know there's one here somewhere. It's in the 90s? Maybe it's in the 90s. Yeah, here. So, Master Knight P.E.K.K.A, for example. That wasn't in this code over here anywhere, so I was using the other thing that I was looking at before in MOH, this to kind of see what the IDs were. The other thing was that in the original IDing of these things, there was a huge gap. Well, not a huge gap. It was a 4 ID gap or something where stuff wasn't being used, and so I had to account for that as well in the Excel functioning to change all the IDs and make them correct. And then I had to go through here and basically take out everything that was setting an ID that wasn't in a proper line, and then add in the classes that were missing from the main list of classes. There's some that come after Elemental Gunner that I'll have to add in, but they weren't causing any problem in here that would cause the IDs to be different. Then I had to redo these numbers because they were wrong. But eventually we got all this done, we got this done, so now the classes have skills. I added in the classes for the mobs back in, so the mobs will do stuff now. let me show you. Where are you? So that's the backups, documents. No, it's not open anymore, apparently. Okay, I'm just going to show you real quick one example of something that I did that was kind of took a lot of time, but was worth it in terms of like fixing NPC coding that was really stupid. The egg and tame sellers, for example, were I can't even describe the levels of stupid they were. So originally, how this worked was that we had this huge code, huge section of code here. So this was part of it here, and this was another part of it here. So that used to all be in the same thing for every one of these labels here. So what I decided to do was, okay, let's figure a way to make this much shorter. This file used to be something like 13,000 lines long or something. It's down to 1418 now. Literally, I have no clue how much. That's like a 90-something% decrease in the number of lines of code because of all the duplicated code and craziness that was going on with this. So I fixed that, added in some stuff that was missing. The Pecco eggs were missing, which caused a little bit of weirdness when I was going through and doing the IDs, which I had to change every ID for, which was also extremely fun. I also decided that instead of calling things like egg seller and tame seller, we're going to give them actual friggin' names. So now this script is called Milla the egg seller, and all the messages will say Milla instead of egg seller now. And the other one's called Erica, the tame seller. And I've done that with all the NPCs that had stupid names like that I've changed so far. That's another one that was kind of crazy. That's the SG Book Quizzer. This one was also kind of the same way. So we had a lot of stuff here, and then we had we had some code that was being called. So what I did with this was slightly different, though. On this one, I created functions to pull out stuff that was this one wasn't really. I guess this one wasn't really that big, but not much changed. But we had some stuff that I created functions for to call just these two things, so we wouldn't have to have them and everything. It didn't really remove too many lines of code, and at some point I decided to actually use L underscore to say a label. That's a label. That's why this one doesn't have that. It's because this was done after that. I'll have to go back now and change all this to L underscore or whatever for the label, just to make sure that you can define them as a label that way. It's just and the tabbing too. It's just, these are just, structural things that, and whatever you want to call them, things that I found that they do in the Arthena team does in the actual script NPC coding, so I figured I would do it with these just because it instead of saying Q1, it's L underscore Q1, so it's a label. And obviously it's a label, but at the same time, it could be a function. It's not a function because a function's defined like this down here, but it's just, it makes it easier to read, so you know what's going on. Like if you have this up here, obviously, well, again, it says call func, so it's a function. One thing I didn't know though is that you can actually pass through parameters to labels. I actually didn't know there was a call func thing at all either, but I didn't know you can pass through stuff to labels as well. So I've used that in a couple places to make the scripts a little less large and a little more easier to go through. Let's see, what's one that changed a hell of a lot since the over the last version? The Disguiser Scrolls. I don't know if I talked about this before. I think I did talk about this before I went up there. Well, I don't know. The last time it was modified was after I went up there. So maybe it didn't happen. Maybe I didn't. I'm pretty sure that I did, though, tell you about this. Um, so maybe it wasn't these. Maybe it was the homunculus system. I think it was the homunculus system. I do think I talked about it before. But this is an example of where we have down here in this thing, it's a function that gets called, and then we're passing parameters to it and getting the arguments. Yeah, I think I talked about this already before. What else did I? Let's see. I'm just trying to figure out what's changed enough that I can kind of show you what's going on. An example of some of the work that I did. Well, let's talk about the job quest master. This is the one that I was creating from scratch. So this guy's name is Merrick. He's in Frontera and probably will be in Payon as well. So we got a couple things here. So we're setting some variables, min J level, min B level for I think rebirthing to super novice, or not super novice, to high novice. Super novice is not a super novice is something else entirely. So basically, what you do is you have these checks that'll send you to various places. So if your skill points are greater than 0, you're gonna be told to use them. If they're at 0, then you'll, in your class as novice, you'll go to the label novice. And if it's if your level's under job level 10, you'll go to J level too low. Because at that point, then you are sent to. Let me see. That might be in the wrong order. I think that's in the wrong order. This should come before the novice part because you have to be a level 10 novice to change to anything. Alright, so that'll fix that. Then if your class isn't novice and your job level is not less than 10, but if your class is novice high, your last job was knight or crusader, you'll go to H swordsman, which will give you the it'll tell you to change into the next level of high swordman, from high swordman to your next level of job. Just kind of give you an idea. So, for example, we have novice, so we have these LC label change sword, label change mage. So it tells you a little bit of information, tells you where to go to. So to change to a swordman, you have to go to the Chancery in Islud. Talk to the swordmaster there, sign up for the test. Master Swordman, sign up for the test, and you'll have to go through a maze within a set amount of time, and then once completed, you'll be able to be made a swordman. And it's pretty much similar for that. I say in here if you'll need certain items, or if there's questions, what the answers to the questions are. Possible questions might be. Once you start getting into the higher stuff, like say for example, like Sage here, for example. Look at this thing. This thing is obscene. You got all. It's just there's all these steps, and it just takes so long to do one of these higher level ones because, there's all these NPCs you have to talk to. First of all, second of all, there's a bunch of questions. You have to gather a bunch of items. So you have to go through and say what all those items are, because there's like a list. There's multiple potential lists of questions and items in this one. So, for example, you might get the 3B section of items, which are different from the other ones. You might get the set 3 of questions. It's just really kind of annoying to go through and do these, but you have to kind of do that just to kind of be. Because supposedly the whole lore behind this guy is that he's basically been every job that there ever is, and is like some super ultra hyper sensei person that will tell you everything you need to do to change to a job. Instead of changing to the job, it'll tell you basically everything you have to do and what you have to do it. You still have to put in the work, though. And so that's what this is just like. And there are some things like this. So you want to be a ninja, huh? I think you may have been reading too much Naruto manga. And like this guy just for example, he had to say this stuff because he's sworn to secrecy about how to become a ninja. But fleshing out some more backstory to him. And there's one in here about him being a merchant, about how he went bankrupt a whole bunch of times or something. So it's just a way to kind of uh, put a little more emphasis back into the classes. And I think part of the thing with the job changer that just changes you to a job, it kind of takes away something from the jobs. I don't know really what, but I mean, you just become it. Don't have to really work. You just level up and you just boom, you become it. I think by doing this, you kind of get a little more sense of what the jobs actually are, or what they represent in the game. So it's a little more putting the lore back into the game, if you will, while still giving you everything you need to complete them without having to resort to going to Google and looking stuff up to do it, because the official server is notoriously difficult to just do stuff on there in terms of job changing, because they don't tell you a damn thing. It's basically just similar to Second Life, where you just go and do stuff. There's no real particular whatever. Like there's no main quest line or whatever. You just go do stuff and make of it what you will. So this is something I've been working on. I'm only up to Sage. There's still a ton of jobs out there to do stuff for, and it just takes forever because of this stuff. Because of all the stuff you have to kind of research and go look for, and it doesn't exist on Rate My Server. You have to go look for it somewhere else where it may be changed, because RO decided that instead of doing them like this, they have these stupid classes now, which are more akin to just doing stuff and talking to people, and more of like a school kind of setting where you're just in classes and have to like repeat stuff back and crap like that. Basically, a ADD-ified way of changing jobs for whatever reason. I have no clue why they did it. So that's what this is geared towards, is bringing back the original way that the jobs were obtained in RO. So, been working on that. What else? What else did I do? Some of these have actually gotten new stuff to them. So, like for example, Coin Manager. So, for example, originally you might have, if you played GeoRo back when it was up, you might have remember that there was this thing you could do with this NPC to get the TCG card trader NPC to trade Mythor coins for platinum ones. The way it was accomplished before was I said, just set like some value to your character in the server, and then I would use that. Instead, this time what I did was I took that out. I'm still going to do that, but there's also an item now that's used for that. So, and there's also conditions. So, for example, you have to now trade in, or sell him. Doing my best to protect headphones users from getting their eardrums blown up by random sneezes. So, in order to get a card from this guy now to enable that feature on the TCG Trader NPC, you have to actually now sell this NPC a certain number of coins. You have to basically become a reliable customer that he will then recommend you over to the other guy. And like, let's say for example that you've done that, and then like you sell the card to somebody and you come back and you say, well, before you enable the thing over there, and you say, well, I haven't done it yet, I need another card, and he'll ask why, and then he'll look at your stuff here. So like for example, if he gave you the card, let me see. So if you give the card to Elroy, it'll say that. But if you haven't given the card to Elroy, you got it from Monty, but then you don't have the card, then you lost it, and then alright, you'll get another. But first, you have to give me twice as many coins. So it like doubles the amount of work you have to do. and basically resets the counters that I have set to the accounts to do so. And actually, this is these are not right. It should just be this 0. You only have to add in the other operators when you're actually adding to it. Otherwise, you just say what value you want to set. I have to go back there and fix all that stuff. So like basically wipes out what you've done so far, and then you have to start over again and give them twice as many coins. So just like things like that to kind of make the game a little more user friendly and to, extend these NPCs a little bit. Did the same thing with the Bloody Branch Manager. There's now instead of just this random value set, you now have a card that you have that allows you to go back and forth for free. Still costs you the same amount as any, but you have it, and you don't need to. If you have it, you don't need to pay anymore. What's something else that I worked on? I mean, I did pretty much everything. I worked on everything. Did work on Dante. I'm trying to remember if I changed anything specifically with Dante. Other than, well, I set up this thing here, so it's a little bit different now. Basically everything I did reduced the amount of code in these files dramatically because I applied this kind of a thing where if we were doing something that was like happening over and over again, like giving items, just set the items to some instance variable in the NPC and then use that to get the values from that, instead of having the all this code used every single time. It's now used once, and you just call into that once you have the other values that were not static. Let's see, what about Hohenheim? Did I change anything with Hohenheim? Did some text fixing because for whatever reason I was on crack or something when I wrote some of these, so there were horrendous spelling issues and grammatical mistakes. Where is Hohenheim? It's homunculus, right? I called it homunculus, which was already open apparently. So like for Hohenheim, not really much changed. That didn't really change that much in terms of like the structure of it, but what? Let's see what changed, what didn't change. So one thing that's different that saved a lot of code space was this stuff here. So like before, we had all this code every single time, which took up a lot of space, as you can see, because there's a lot of stuff here. And then each time we would have to call specific things. It was just really a mess and a lot of code that didn't need to be there. So I changed it so that it was basically based on the embryo level. If your embryo level is 1, then what you're upgrading to is level 2 embryo. So we just need to call the labels for those. For level 2, it goes to 3, and if it's level 3, it goes to level 4. Pretty simple, and these were stayed pretty much how they were. We got the summon function script here, which I tried a little bit to clean up because for some reason I had this on like the at command on the same line as like this if statement, and things were kind of really all over the place. Added in some extra information, like anytime you use next, the message window gets the title whatever removed from it, so you have to re-add it. So I did that with all those. Still deciding whether or not after each menu where you select an option if there's a next called or not. It's just again stylistic kind of thing to deal with, but so a lot of stuff got changed. The last thing I was working on was the black market. I'd only gotten done with a few of them. Let's see, modified with just these, the coin exchanger, the exit warp NPC, the Dawn, and the ammunitions. I think I cleaned a little bit out of this. Not much. There wasn't really much to clean out of here. It's just, it's just again changing these to labels, tabbing, the if formatting, fixing the at commands, some other stuff that I can't exactly remember at the moment. As for the other ones, though, it was actually changing IDs around. So again, labels, anything with lots of labels takes a lot of time to do because I'm renaming them. So it takes a while to work on those. As you can see, I only barely got down to here. And so, like, as you can see here, we had all this stuff for each one of these before. So it's not a very large file because there's not that many items. So, but you can kind of see how this would get kind of insane on larger ones. So instead, we have an L-Next label now that does pretty much all that for you. All the stuff down there. So what happened is that you would have this. It would ask you how many you wanted in terms of the numbers, and then, or I think we actually have to go up one more, or do we? Just trying to remember because there's, as you can see, there's a lot more stuff here. Oh, okay, that's so yeah, we have to pull the values out, which is different. Then add in the window labels, which is again different, and then add spaces after the empty spaces after the nexts, just for readability's sake, and then made these actually look the way they're supposed to. So it's the same code here, just a little bit more readable. But yeah, still, it's going to take all this code here, all these lines of code, and take it down to one line. It's just like, why didn't I do this in the first place? So I mean, literally, how many lines is this? This is 13 down to 1, so it's like a huge amount of code being removed over this number of items. It'll be even larger on ones that have a lot more on them. But I hadn't gotten very far in that. I still have all this stuff to do. What else did I work on? Changed some stuff on the... Not changed it, but I did change some stuff on the Thanatos puzzle NPCs. I fixed up some of them, and I mean, not fixed them up might not be the right word. I changed them to be a little more correct in terms of like the text and the formatting, and I think there was also a question I had in terms of like the on glow stuff, but whatever. So yeah, it's just really. This was a really interesting thing that I worked on because it was literally like putting in some sort of interactive quest into a map that already existed and had stuff, has like a quest associated with it already, but changing it for the dual jobs quest. Let's see what else is there to talk about. Don't really think there's anything much else, to be honest. It's mostly NPCs, those things, the source code changes, the stuff with the items. I think that pretty much covers everything. So on the list of mobs, it only goes down to G's, I think. Only down to the G's. There's a whole bunch of other mobs listed there, but it doesn't list what I did to them or what I had planned to do them, so I'm not really sure what that's all about. I'm going to have to go through and modify, while I'm fixing the other NPCs, like the wing seller and Naruto item seller, and figure out maybe what I was using those for, planning to use those for. Again, still have to go through and deal with the items, the official item changes. Haven't done that yet. And then I also have to kind of go in and continue working on the database editor tool. It's still, there are quite a few things that are kind of annoying about it. For one, there's no scroll bar that shows up. I didn't think that was a problem until I tried using that, using it on the laptop. The screen resolution is so small that on the mob section, the drop rate boxes, you can't see them really. You can tab over to them, but you can't see them, so you have to kind of guess at what's in there and what you've entered in, and then you can barely hit the exit editor button at the bottom. So I'm going to see if I can add in a scroll bar to that, so that if that ever happens, so if that happens again, that won't be an issue. If that happens on other people's computers while they're using it, that will be an issue. Let's see. I guess I could show you the fanfic. Just kind of go over. It's kind of hard to describe fanfiction without actually just reading it off. Basically, it's something that he was working on, based around his character and some other characters that his friends and relatives had used on other servers in the past. And again, based on loosely on the RO lore. Though I'm gonna have to go through and kind of clean it up a little bit because the structure of the countries isn't really so cut and dry. Like, for example, Liang is a country; it's a village in a country. Country is well, and again, it's kind of weird because of how they're Liang is supposedly part of a. It's not part of Midgard. It's part of a, like a. I don't know even how to describe it. In the wiki, it says some sort of like independent nations thing or whatever, cities thing or something. It's not even lore friendly how they describe it in the wiki and how Gravity had described it when they created it. But it's not technically part of Midgard. So stuff like that, just trying to make it a little bit more lore based is one of my goals for it. Let me just see if I can locate it. Let's see. Actually, they probably are still in that folder because I didn't haven't moved them over yet. Oh, I didn't need to. They were on the F drive. Or no, F. No, F is the one out here. 2 terabyte drive. Or is it? Oh no, okay, it goes there, good. Except it's G. Alright, so backups. But yeah, so he had gotten to chapter 4, and then he handed it off to me with some other information for future chapters. So I wrote chapter 5, and then I've been going back there and rewriting the other chapters to be a little bit more kind of where I'm at in terms of writing style, which I will be doing with this too. Yes, that's something else I worked on. I was going to work a bit on Triasha, but I never got around to it. Trash is for those that don't know, Trash is a story series, franchise, whatever I've been writing for, I don't know, since 2004 or 3 or 4, somewhere in there. It's got 7 books total. 6 books. The 7th one is going to be more of like a appendix of a whole bunch of different random information. But the first chapters, the first books I wrote when I was like in high school and kind of sucked at writing, but had this idea and wanted to run with it. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going back and rewriting the first books and trying to put more information into them. Like, for example, the first book was only 6 chapters long, and now now through reworking, I'm up to like chapter 9 or 10, and I'm about where chapter 4 ended with that. So it's just about extending them out and making it longer to more again fit where I'm at writing in my writing style right now. Eventual goal of that is maybe to try and publish it or something, but we'll see what happens. What else did I work on? Kind of didn't really get to work on too much of this stuff after middle of last week because that contract I mentioned earlier kind of came into being, and I was working on that a lot. Have been working on that a lot. So on that note, let's talk about Reciteer. So I'm not sure when I will do the next stream for it. Maybe I'll see about doing it on maybe Monday or Tuesday night, but probably not likely. The next possible time might be next Friday, because on Thursday I have an interview that's going to take most of the afternoon. And then it's also going to be probably will also be wrapping up that contract around that time, sometime around there. So Friday night will probably be the first time I have, if not on Monday and Tuesday. So just kind of file that away for future reference. Have not gotten anything else done on the trailer for obvious reasons for CE. I'll kind of probably have to shove that up to the front because we're getting kind of close to when I might have to actually put something up for it. So I'll see if I can't get that done maybe the week after next. See what happens in terms of whether or not I finally obtain a full-time job or not, and what other contracts come around. Other than that, I don't really have any plans to do much streaming. I just wanted to do this stream to kind of say, hey, I'm back, and here's what I managed to get done over the time I was over there, and the kind of the nature of the stuff and what I'm planning to go to work on next in terms of the RO server. The server's getting fairly close to done. Obviously, there's the whole client side of this frickin' thing with the jobs, which is not going to be fun. So I have to figure out how all that stuff's defined in the new client, client version, and if there's any kind of gotchas, then will have to be dealt with. But so this is moving along at a good pace. Hopefully, I'll have the server up for beta testing maybe by the end of May, mid-June. I think it's where I was targeting in the first place. So it seemed to be on track for that at this point. So that's good. I have created a new my server entry for the server once it goes up that has. Oh, that's what else I want to talk about. I'm actually going to be eventually working on a quest line or a story for GeoRo. That'll be like a main quest line that you'll be able to go through and follow. That will take a while because I'm going to try and base it in lore from the game somehow. I have to do some heavy researching on RO and the backstory and the lore, and try and figure out something that'll be kind of interesting and unique to the game, to our server, to kind of put in there. Also gonna have to. I noticed when I was going through the SG Book Quizzer, there's some cities that are missing, so I'll have to go and put those in. And just in general, all this other stuff I've been working on for this GeoRo, for example, and all the other kind of ideas I've had, and like the disguise scrolls and stuff like that. Expanding all that stuff out. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with the server this time around. Whatever happens, I am planning to just leave it online, and continue working on it. So I'm not going to just like shut it down if nobody plays on it. It'll just be sitting there, available. Don't plan on shutting it down this time. The only reason I did last time was because the computer I had the server running on, I had cannibalized it for my next system, sort of, and then that system had some problems, and I basically rebuilt it. Not really rebuilt it, but I kind of rebuilt it. I actually still have that previous server down here, but I'm not entirely sure. I think the CPU still works, and I think the RAM still works, but I think there's a problem with the motherboard. It's some weird knockoff Chinese piece of crap motherboard from some company called FIC, whatever that means. I looked them up one time, but I've already forgotten what their name is because they're such a small fry and not very high quality in terms of the products. But it was supposed to be like a LAN party board, so there was this lights on it that flashed around and stuff, and there's like this, I think the CPU fan is dead or something. Maybe it might be, or it might not be. It might be the back case fan that's dead. I think the CPU fan might still work. If it didn't, I think it would have exploded a while ago. But I got that one down here, and I have no clue if it runs or not, and I have no clue what's actually on it anymore. But my 2007 system, the first one that I built. No. Yes. No. 2012. 2012. Second system I built. That's the one I'm going to be using for this server once I get it finished. I'm not going to host it on this system because, well, I'd like to. I'll be doing stuff on this system. Sometimes it'll like cause the server to have a connection fit and freak out because it'll be pegging the CPU or something. So I'll put it on that one. That one's still pretty strong. It's got a fifth generation. I think it's a 39. What is it? 3990K, 3960K, something like that. It's a fifth generation Core i7, I think. So it's got that in there. It's got I think that was on I think it was Ultimate 64 Windows 7. So I think it does have 32 gigabytes of RAM. So I think it has enough RAM and enough processing power to handle an RO server plus whatever other servers I decide to bring back up. So we did originally have also a Lineage 2 server, a Cabal Online server, and I was planning to open up a Guns server, but that never materialized really. I did bring it up, but then I didn't always leave it on. But the Lineage 2 one was one that I was heavily developing out at the time. So yeah, there's a lot of potential stuff going to be happening in the future for LMP Games in terms of gaming servers. Just stay tuned. Maybe I'll open a WoW server. I don't know. I think I did download one at one point and logged into it just to see what WoW is like. So, because I'm not gonna pay Blizzard to play WoW. It's just It doesn't. I like Warcraft. Warcraft is an awesome game series, but World of Warcraft, it's just, I don't know. Something about it just doesn't. Just doesn't sit right with me. I'm not sure really what it is yet. And this is, having played on that private server for 2 or 3 years, I think, on and off. I turned it on and played on it a bit. I just couldn't get into it for whatever reason. It's kind of weird. But I might bring that back. Just depends on what goes on in the next couple of months here. But thanks for tuning in to the live stream if you did. If you're watching it on YouTube afterwards, comments, questions, leave them below. If you haven't done so already, I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. And I will see you either Monday or Tuesday or next Friday for the rest tier stream. Maybe it'll be the last one. Maybe. I'm not sure. Probably not. It's more likely probably not because, like I said, we're basically going to ride the survival coaster until the wheels fall off of it. And that still looks pretty improbable given all the stuff I was selling, so it might take a few more debt payments to get to the point where I can't keep up with it. But it will happen sooner rather than later, so I'm going to try and get the CTE, the Crimson Echoes trailer done, so have that ready when it's ready, when we need to have that up there. Again, also, after we finish once I finish uploading Crimson Echoes, we will be doing Chrono Cross, which is kind of questionable. I mean, it's another huge long one. And after we finish that, I'm going to go on like a break to catch up on the review series. But I mean, it's Chrono Cross is a different beast entirely. There's like 40 playable characters. It's going to be weird and interesting. I do have a guide I printed out a long time ago. I think I printed it out in 2006 or 7. That I have sitting in a folder somewhere around here, just waiting for this time when I was going to do the walkthrough for it. Originally I was going to use it when I was playing it, and then I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well just use it while I'm doing the walkthrough for it. So that'll be interesting as well. But again, next Wednesday or Tuesday, and if not then on Friday, will be the next stream for Rest Tier. Probably won't do any streaming before then, and we'll see where things go from there. Stream end.